The galaxy was quiet, too quiet. Across countless systems, the stars glimmered like distant promises, but behind their shine, darkness was spreading. For centuries, the peaceful coalition of civilizations had thrived. Each species brought its own wisdom, its own art, its own knowledge of the cosmos. They traded freely, studied the stars, and learned from each other. But now the coalition trembled. An empire of unimaginable power had begun sweeping across their worlds, leaving nothing but fear and destruction in its path. The first reports were almost unbelievable. Entire planets swallowed in fire. Civilizations that had lasted for thousands of cycles, reduced to ghostly husks. Messages from those worlds came too late, or sometimes not at all. Those who survived spoke of fleets larger than any they had ever seen, ships that moved like shadows and struck with precision. No negotiation worked. No alliance seemed to matter. The Empire did not respond to pleas. It did not pause. It did not show mercy. In the Coalition's central command station, on a small planet orbiting a dying sun, the leaders gathered. They were the last hope, a council formed from the wisest of the wisest, representing species whose lifetimes could span hundreds of years. Yet even they were running out of answers. The war had started silently, with no warning, and it had grown like a storm, unstoppable and unfeeling. "We have tried everything," said Liara, a diplomat of the Valorian people, her voice trembling though she tried to hide it. "Every request, every warning, every plea to the other systems, and yet nothing." "Do you mean to say," it said slowly, its voice like scratching stone, "that there is no one left willing to help? No fleets, no allies, no one?" "We have sent messages to the oldest civilizations, the richest, the most powerful. We even contacted the Galactic councils. All silence. Everyone refuses. How is it that we, the coalition of 1,000 worlds, find ourselves abandoned?" The small computer console flickered, displaying the symbol of a species that few had heard of and even fewer respected: humans. The room went still. The council members exchanged confused glances. Humans, they had heard of them, of course. They were young in galactic terms, barely a century into space exploration. Their fleets were small, their technology uneven, and their internal conflicts well known. Many in the galaxy considered humans reckless, unpredictable, perhaps even dangerous. But desperate as they were, Liara pressed the console to open the message. The transmission began, a simple sequence of lights and sound, translating automatically into a voice that was both calm and firm. "This is Captain Elias Ward of the human ship Resolute. We received your distress signal. We are en route." Some council members gasped, some murmured in disbelief. MRAC clicked its mandibles so fast that the sound was almost frantic. "You must be mistaken. Humans cannot." It was a ragtag line of ships, not a grand armada. Small vessels, patched and worn, yet moving with determination. This is madness," he muttered. "They are walking into certain destruction." Over the next hours, the human fleet continued to approach. Sensors picked up each ship, revealing names painted in rough letters, designs that seemed almost improvised. Yet there was a strange unity to their movement, a confidence in their coordination. Liara and the council studied them closely. "What do they want?" MRAC asked. "Do they seek to conquer, or negotiate, or sacrifice themselves?" For the first time in cycles, the council felt that perhaps survival was possible, not because they were strong, but because someone had chosen to stand with them. Far from the dying sun and the fragile coalition, the humans aboard the Resolute prepared for what lay ahead. Captain Ward walked the deck, observing his crew, humans from every corner of their home planet, trained in different ways, some veterans of small interstellar conflicts, others explorers and scientists. All were united by a single idea: they had received a call for help and they would not ignore it. "Remember this," Ward said to his officers. "We do not fight because it is easy. We do not fight because we know we can win. We fight because it is right, because someone asked for mercy. That alone is enough." As the fleet entered the outer edge of the Coalition's territory, alien sensors detected them. At first, many were skeptical. "They are small," one officer said. "They cannot matter." Other humans followed, creating a barrier between the Scout and the Coalition worlds. The Council watched in awe. They had never seen anything like it. These humans did not have the advantage of numbers or overwhelming firepower, yet they acted as if nothing else in the galaxy mattered but protecting those who could not protect themselves. Liara finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I think we were wrong to doubt them. They simply were there. And for the first time in cycles, the coalition felt a fragile, trembling hope. Hope that perhaps, even in a galaxy that had turned its back, mercy could still be answered. And somewhere in the void of space, Captain Ward and his crew looked out at the distant lights of the coalition's worlds. They did not know how many would survive the coming storm or if the Empire could be stopped. But they had made a choice, and in that choice they had already begun to change the course of the galaxy. The stars were quiet, too quiet, but now among that silence there was a voice, one that would not falter, one that would answer no matter the cost. Humans were coming. The human fleet moved steadily through the void. Though small and uneven, it carried a presence that no sensor or algorithm could measure. Every ship bore the marks of countless journeys, of repairs done with ingenuity rather than perfection. Some hulls were scarred, some engines hummed with the faint rattle of makeshift reinforcements. To the galaxy's usual observers, it was chaos. To the humans, it was home, and it was enough. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the stars stretch into lines as their faster-than-light engines propelled them closer to the coalition worlds. He had studied every map, every report, every simulation the humans could access. The Empire's fleets were vast, superior, and merciless. The humans were few, yet he refused to hesitate. "We will not leave anyone behind," Ward told his officers, his voice calm but unshakable. "Our purpose is simple: protect those who cannot protect themselves. Nothing else matters." They do not seem to trust us fully. Citizens on the surviving planets gathered near observation ports or out in open squares, watching the tiny, ragged line of human ships move with quiet purpose. Many could not believe what they saw. The humans were not a formal fleet, not a display of power, not an empire's armada. They were a few ships, moving in a single, determined direction, their intent unmistakable. "They are coming," whispered Liara. Her reflective eyes widened as she watched the first of the human ships enter coalition space. "And they do not hesitate." Captain Ward's fleet approached the first of the contested systems, a planet called Nyear Prime. The Empire had already begun stripping it of resources, leaving the surface scarred and the population terrified. Ward ordered the human ships to spread into defensive positions around the planet. It was a thin barrier, a fragile line, yet it was enough to make the difference between immediate conquest and a chance for survival. "Shields up! Weapons ready!" he commanded. The humans moved with practiced precision, despite differences in ship design and size. Engineers adjusted energy flows, recalculated trajectories, and rerouted power, all without a single debate. Every human knew the task, and every human accepted it. From orbit, the humans saw the first Empire scouts approaching, sleek, dark ships more numerous than the humans could count, moving with silent menace. They did not respond to communications. They came to destroy. "Engage," Ward said, his voice steady. The human ships did not wait for strategy meetings or councils. They moved, they acted, they positioned themselves to shield the coalition worlds. The battle began, but it was unlike anything the aliens had expected. The humans did not attempt to destroy everything. They did not charge recklessly or hide behind walls of fire. Instead, they maneuvered, weaving among the Empire's scouts, intercepting attacks, diverting them away from the planet and its people. Ships took hits, sparks flew from damaged hulls, alarms screamed across bridges. Yet the humans continued. Lieutenant Kess guided a small squadron to protect a refugee convoy leaving the planet. The convoy was slow, vulnerable, but the humans refused to abandon it. A small Empire ship broke through the perimeter, targeting the convoy, but Kess's squadron intercepted. Energy beams collided in the void, and for a moment it seemed the human ships would be overwhelmed. Yet their tactics were precise. One human ship drew the enemy's fire while the others maneuvered to flank it, a move no one had predicted. The scout was destroyed, the convoy escaped, and not a single civilian was lost. Below, on the planet's surface, the population watched in awe. They had expected death. They had expected silence because no one else had come, and now these humans, strange, young, unpredictable, were risking everything for them. They are protecting us," whispered an elder of Nyear Prime. Why would they do this?" In the Coalition's command room, Liara and the Council observed the battle. Joreth, the general, could not hide his astonishment. "They are fearless," he muttered, "and disciplined. I did not expect this. They do not fight to win, they fight to protect. That is why they survive longer than logic allows. That is why we have hope." One small ship used a field generator to mask a refugee convoy's trajectory. Another created an improvised shield from planetary debris. Every tactic was creative, every move purposeful. Captain Ward walked the bridge, observing his crew. He knew the risks. He knew some ships would be lost, some humans would not return, yet he also knew that they were making a difference. They were buying time, giving hope, and proving something that no simulation could calculate. Humans valued mercy over victory. As the hours stretched into cycles, the humans faced their first major challenge. A large Empire task force had arrived. Unlike the scouts, these ships were heavily armed and far more numerous. They moved like a storm, aiming to crush the human defenses and secure the coalition worlds. Ward called his officers together. "Listen carefully. We cannot stop them all. We cannot destroy their fleet. But we can delay them. We can protect as many lives as possible. That is our mission." Nothing else. Explosions lit the void, energy beams clashing with shields, metal twisting under fire. One human ship took a direct hit and began drifting, smoke billowing from its engines. Crew members worked frantically to repair it while under fire, refusing to abandon their post. Another ship moved to cover the damaged vessel, drawing enemy attention away. On the coalition planets, citizens watched the sky. They saw destruction, yes, but they also saw resistance. They saw humans moving with courage that defied reason. And they realized, perhaps for the first time in their lives, that mercy had not been abandoned in the galaxy. Someone had answered their call. Hours turned into cycles, and the human fleet continued to fight with relentless determination. Casualties mounted. Ships were lost. Crews were wounded, yet the humans never wavered. They adapted. They improvised. They protected. Every act, every maneuver, every sacrifice demonstrated a simple truth. Humans were not fighting for themselves. They were fighting for others. By the time the battle drew toward its first end, the Empire had withdrawn slightly, surprised by the resilience and ingenuity of the humans. They had not anticipated this form of resistance, this strange, determined species willing to risk everything for those they barely knew. Ward surveyed the battlefield from the bridge of the Resolute. Many of his ships had been damaged, some were lost entirely. The crew was exhausted, yet their eyes were bright with purpose. They had done what they had come to do: protect the innocent, buy time, and prove that mercy could still exist. Liara and the Coalition Council watched as the Empire retreated. Relief and awe swept through them. They had feared the worst, assumed the humans could not possibly make a difference. And yet here they were, standing between life and annihilation, holding hope in their hands like a fragile flame. Jorath finally spoke, his voice filled with reluctant admiration. "They are remarkable, not because of weapons or numbers, but because of choice. They choose to act when no one else will. Humans, they do not calculate risk in the same way. They measure the worth of life differently. They care." Refugees returned to temporary shelters. Survivors shared stories of the humans who had protected them, not as soldiers or conquerors, but as friends, strangers who chose to stand in the void and answer a call for mercy. In the depths of space, Captain Ward and his crew prepared for what was to come. They knew the Empire would return, stronger and more determined. They knew their fleet was small and battered, yet they did not despair. They had shown the galaxy something few believed possible. Even in the darkest hours, mercy could still be answered. And so, humans continued their mission, not seeking glory or reward, but simply doing what they believed was right. The galaxy might doubt them, the Empire might fear them, but the humans had begun a story that would echo across the stars. That someone would come when mercy was needed, no matter the cost. The stars shone, distant and cold. Yet among them, a small fleet of humans moved steadily, unwavering, and determined to protect those who had no one else. And the galaxy began to understand that humans were unlike any species it had known. The humans had held their ground for several cycles, moving like shadows between the coalition worlds and the Empire's advancing forces. For the first time, hope was rekindled in the hearts of the Council and the surviving populations. But Captain Ward knew that this calm was only temporary. The Empire was not a force that could be satisfied with a few minor setbacks. It would return, stronger, faster, and more ruthless than before. Ward walked along the deck of the Resolute, watching his crew. They had grown accustomed to exhaustion and danger, yet their faces were calm, determined, and unwavering. Every officer, every crew member knew the cost of the coming battles. Yet there was no hesitation, no complaints, only resolve. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kess, approaching with a datapad in hand, "our scouts report a fleet approaching from the outer rim. It is larger than anything we have faced so far. Multiple capital ships, hundreds of fighters. They are heading straight for the systems we have been defending." Each red dot represented another threat, another potential tragedy waiting to happen. "How long until they reach Nyear Prime?" he asked. "2 cycles at maximum speed," Kess replied. "If we do not intercept them, the planet will be overrun before civilians can evacuate. We can wait for the fleet to arrive and hope we can delay them, or we can meet them before they reach the planets. The second option is dangerous. We are few and they are many, but it is our duty to protect the innocent." Each vessel moved in precise formation, balancing offense and defense, protecting each other and covering the slower ships carrying refugees. As they approached the outer system, the first glimpse of the Empire fleet appeared. It was massive, an endless sea of metal and fire. The human ships looked tiny against it, almost fragile, yet there was no fear in their movements. They advanced steadily, positioning themselves between the Empire and the civilian worlds. The first shots rang out. Energy beams lit the void, cutting across stars, illuminating ships with flashes of blue and red. One human frigate absorbed a hit that would have destroyed a smaller vessel, its shields flickering, engines straining, yet it held. Another ship launched countermeasures, diverting incoming fire and saving a refugee convoy from certain destruction. Below, on the surface of Nyear Prime, the citizens watched in awe and fear. They had seen humans in action before, and yet this battle was different. It was larger, more dangerous, and more chaotic. Every person on the planet felt the tension, knowing that survival depended on these small, determined ships. Liara and the Council observed from the command station. She could not hide her anxiety. "They are brave," she said softly, "but can they survive this?" "But somehow, they make it seem possible." Captain Ward directed the fleet, coordinating movements, predicting enemy attacks, and issuing orders with calm precision. "Hold the line," he commanded. "Protect the civilians. We will not let them suffer while we still breathe." Crew members struggled to maintain control as systems failed one by one. Lieutenant Kess watched helplessly as the vessel began to drift toward the Empire fleet. "Sir, they won't make it," she shouted. Ward clenched his jaw. "We will not abandon them," he said. "Dispatch a rescue squadron." "Move now." For the first time, the coalition leaders realized the full extent of human courage. These beings were risking everything, not for glory or reward, but simply to save others. Every action, every maneuver, every sacrifice demonstrated a principle that few species had ever understood. Life was more valuable than victory. The battle raged for cycles. The Empire pressed its attack, using every advantage in numbers and firepower. Human ships were destroyed, battered, or forced to retreat. Casualties mounted, and yet no human turned back from their duty. They adapted constantly, improvising solutions to problems that should have been insurmountable. In one critical moment, a large Empire capital ship broke through the human line, heading directly for a civilian transport filled with thousands of refugees. Ward did not hesitate. He piloted the Resolute into the path of the enemy, drawing its fire and buying precious minutes for the transport to escape. The capital ship's weapons struck the human vessel, tearing through its hull, but the crew held their position, maintaining shields just long enough for the civilians to move out of danger. The human ship was critically damaged, and many lives were lost, but the refugees survived. On the coalition worlds, survivors would later tell stories of the humans who had shielded them from death, of those who had risked everything to ensure their safety. Liara watched in silence, tears filling her eyes. I cannot believe this," she whispered. "They are not just fighting, they are teaching us what it means to care for each other. And in doing so, they are changing the galaxy. Even the Empire cannot understand them. They cannot calculate this kind of courage, this kind of mercy." The Empire would return, stronger and more determined. Yet the humans faced the future with unwavering resolve, guided by a principle that transcended fear. They fought for others, even when it meant risking everything. Throughout the battle, small acts of heroism shone like stars in the darkness. A human engineer on the Vanguard repaired a damaged energy cannon while under fire, saving dozens of ships in the fleet. A pilot on the Phoenix rescued a disabled vessel drifting toward destruction, risking his life to tow it to safety. Another crew on the Liberty used improvised tactics to shield a planet from bombardment, buying enough time for evacuation efforts. Each act was small in isolation, but together they formed a mosaic of courage, determination, and mercy. The coalition worlds began to understand what the humans represented. These were not soldiers seeking victory or conquest. They were protectors, willing to stand in the void and face overwhelming odds to save others. Slowly, the people's fear transformed into hope. Slowly, the leaders began to trust that perhaps survival was possible. Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, looking at the battered but unbroken fleet. "We will face more battles," he said quietly. "We will lose ships, we will lose friends, but we will not abandon those who need us. That is our duty, that is what humans do." "They are inspiring everyone," she said. "Even the coalition, even the enemy. It will be because we chose to stand for what is right." On Nyear Prime, survivors told stories of the humans who had saved them. Children spoke of the brave pilots who darted between enemy ships. Elders recounted the engineers who kept vessels alive under impossible conditions, and leaders remembered the small fleet that had arrived when no one else would. Across the coalition worlds, the legend of the humans grew. Not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as a species willing to answer a call for mercy, even when the cost was unimaginable. Ward and his crew prepared for the next engagement. They knew the Empire would return, larger and more ruthless than before. Yet they did not despair. They had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. They had demonstrated that mercy was not weakness, that courage was not measured by numbers, and that standing for others could change the course of events, even against impossible odds. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, the human fleet moved forward, ready to face whatever came next. The Empire had not yet learned the lesson. Humans were not merely fighters. Humans were a force of hope, mercy, and courage. The galaxy began to understand, slowly but surely, that when humans chose to act, they acted not for themselves, but for others. And in that choice, they were unlike any species the universe had ever known. No matter the loss, no matter the danger, no matter the odds, humans would continue to answer the call. The galaxy held its breath. After the first battles, hope had begun to blossom in the hearts of the coalition worlds. For the first time in cycles, people dared to believe they might survive. Yet Captain Elias Ward knew better than anyone that the Empire would not rest. Its fleets were vast, its power immense, and it did not tolerate defiance. The humans had delayed the Empire, protected civilians, and inspired others, but now the true test had come. From the bridge of the Resolute, Ward surveyed the approaching fleet. Hundreds of ships moved like a dark tide through space, their weapons ready to strike, their formations precise. This was no scouting mission, no minor strike. This was the Empire's full assault, intended to crush resistance and reclaim what it considered rightfully its own. Ward's crew did not flinch. They had seen overwhelming odds before. They had survived impossible situations. And they had a principle guiding them, one stronger than fear. They would protect the innocent, no matter the cost. "Position ships around the coalition planets," Ward ordered. "We cannot match their numbers, but we can force them to fight on our terms. Every second we buy is a life saved. Every life we save is worth more than victory." Small vessels created barriers, while larger ships concentrated firepower on the advancing Empire fleet. Engineers recalculated energy flows, rerouted power to shields, and repaired what could be fixed mid-flight. Every crew member knew their role, every movement was coordinated, and every action had a single purpose: protect the innocent. On the coalition worlds, citizens watched the skies with a mixture of awe and fear. They had seen humans fight before, but this battle dwarfed all previous conflicts. Entire fleets moved like a single organism, responding to threats, covering civilians, and deflecting attacks with ingenuity no one had predicted. Liara stood with the council, her reflective eyes wide with concern. "They are outnumbered," she said softly, "far outnumbered, and yet they hold their ground." Capital ships unleashed volleys of energy, cutting through the void with precision. Smaller human vessels darted between beams, weaving and maneuvering in ways the enemy could not anticipate. One human frigate intercepted a massive energy blast aimed at a refugee convoy, absorbing the attack with shields that flickered but held. Another ship used an improvised energy deflection system, redirecting fire away from a vulnerable planet. In the chaos, small acts of heroism shone brightly. A human engineer aboard the Vanguard repaired a damaged weapons system while under fire, allowing the ship to defend others. A pilot of the Phoenix intercepted a disabled vessel drifting toward destruction, using precise maneuvers to tow it to safety. On another ship, crew members worked tirelessly to stabilize shields while under bombardment, saving countless lives. Each act was small alone, yet together they formed a chain of courage that no enemy could break. The Empire commanders were baffled. They had expected humans to flee, to surrender, to be overwhelmed. Instead, they faced a force willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. Their simulations had no solution for a species that valued mercy over victory, courage over self-preservation, and life over conquest. Captain Ward knew the Empire's next move. They would try to break the human line, target the most critical ships, and crush hope in a single strike. He called his officers together. "We cannot stop them all," he said. "We cannot match them in firepower, but we can use their arrogance against them. We can create traps, force them into positions where they must fight on our terms, and save as many lives as possible. That is our mission." Nothing else. One critical moment came when an Empire capital ship aimed directly for Nyear Prime's orbiting evacuation fleet. Ward did not hesitate. He piloted the Resolute into its path, using every trick in human ingenuity to distract the enemy. Decoys were launched, energy beams redirected, and other ships moved in to assist. The capital ship fired repeatedly, tearing through the Resolute's shields, but the humans held. Every second counted. Every life saved was a victory beyond calculation. The coalition worlds witnessed the action from afar, hearts pounding, unable to believe the courage and sacrifice on display. For every human ship destroyed, another maneuvered into place, covering civilians and buying time. Refugee transports slipped through the chaos, shielded by human ingenuity, speed, and courage. Even when a smaller human vessel was hit directly and disabled, the crew refused to abandon ship. They worked in the wreckage, repairing engines, stabilizing systems, and preparing to rejoin the fight. Other human ships risked their own safety to assist, forming a living chain of protection in the void. Liara and the Council could hardly comprehend what they were witnessing. "They are not just defending," she whispered. "They are teaching us what it means to fight for others. The Empire cannot calculate this. They cannot understand it, and that is why humans endure." They use the environment to their advantage, employing asteroid fields, debris from destroyed ships, and gravitational anomalies to shield refugees and confuse enemy targeting. Every engagement demonstrated human creativity, resourcefulness, and a willingness to act when others would not. Ward knew the fleet could not withstand unlimited attacks. They had already lost ships and casualties were high, yet he also knew something deeper. The humans' actions were inspiring the coalition. More ships and volunteers from the coalition worlds began to organize, inspired by what they had witnessed. Humans had shown them a way to stand, to fight, and to protect. As the Empire pressed harder, a turning point arrived. Using an improvised maneuver, human ships created a choke point near a dense asteroid belt. They funneled the Empire fleet into a narrow corridor where their numbers became less advantageous. Missiles, energy beams, and electronic countermeasures combined to disable key enemy ships. The Empire, expecting an easy victory, found itself trapped, unable to maneuver effectively and facing unexpected resistance. Ward watched the results with a quiet satisfaction. "Every life we save is proof that what we do matters," he said. "Even if we cannot destroy them all, we can protect the innocent. That is our strength." Ships that could not return fire provided shields to others. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair what should have been irreparable. Pilots executed daring maneuvers, risking everything to protect civilians. The coalition worlds began to understand that this was not merely a battle. It was a demonstration of what it meant to stand for others when no one else would. After long cycles of battle, the Empire fleet began to retreat. They had not been defeated completely, but they had been delayed, frustrated, and forced to witness something they could not comprehend. A species willing to risk everything for mercy. Ward gathered his crew. They were battered, exhausted, and grieving for those lost, but their eyes shone with purpose. "We have done what we came to do," he said. "We have protected the innocent, bought time, and shown the galaxy that humans will not abandon those who need us. The Empire may return. We may face greater challenges, but what we have done here will echo across the stars." Children spoke of pilots darting between enemy ships. Elders recounted engineers who repaired systems under fire, and leaders remembered the small fleet that had arrived when no one else would. Across the galaxy, humans were no longer merely young, unpredictable beings. They were a symbol of hope, mercy, and courage. Liara and Jorath turned to each other, their faces reflecting a new understanding. "They are teaching the galaxy," Liara said. "Not with words, but with actions. They are showing what it means to fight for others even when the cost is high. That is a lesson no one can ignore." They had demonstrated that mercy and courage could be stronger than numbers, stronger than fear, and stronger than even the most powerful enemy. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, the human fleet moved forward, ready to face whatever came next. They had shown the galaxy that humans were not merely fighters. Humans were protectors, defenders, and a force of hope in a universe that had almost forgotten what mercy meant. No matter the cost, no matter the danger, no matter the odds, humans would continue to answer the call. The galaxy began to understand, slowly but surely, that when humans chose to act, they acted not for themselves, but for others. And in that choice they were unlike any species it had ever known. The stars shone, distant and cold. Yet among them a small fleet of humans moved steadily, unwavering, and determined to protect those who had no one else. The Empire had not yet learned the lesson. Humans do not abandon the helpless. And when they answer a call, the universe itself begins to change. The galaxy was on edge. The Empire, frustrated and enraged by the humans' interference, had returned with a force larger than anything the Coalition had ever faced. Hundreds of capital ships, thousands of fighters and weapons capable of destroying entire planets moved like a dark tide, consuming the stars in their path. Every species that had survived the first wave of attacks braced themselves for annihilation. They had seen the humans fight before. They had seen courage, mercy, and ingenuity, but this time the challenge seemed insurmountable. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the approaching fleet. The humans had been tested before, and they had proven themselves against impossible odds. But this was different. The Empire was relentless, and the Coalition's resources were stretched thin. Even Ward, who had faced death countless times, felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Lieutenant Marrakes approached, datapad in hand. "Sir, the fleet is massive. Our scouts estimate their numbers to be at least 5 times ours. We cannot engage them head-on and survive." Small, battered, patched ships formed barriers around the Coalition worlds. Larger vessels concentrated fire on the most dangerous threats. Engineers rerouted power from non-essential systems to shields and weapons. Pilots coordinated movements with precision, each understanding that failure was not an option. On Nyear Prime, citizens watched from observation stations. Children clung to parents, elders prayed quietly, and leaders held their breath. For months, they had relied on humans to protect them. Now, as the Empire approached in overwhelming force, they realized just how much they depended on them. Fear gripped their hearts, yet a fragile hope remained. Liara and the Council observed the battle from the command station. "They are so few," she said softly. "And yet I do not feel despair." Explosions lit the void, and alarms blared across human vessels. Yet the humans did not retreat. They maneuvered, dodged, and protected the Coalition's most vulnerable. Every attack was met with countermeasures, shields were reinforced mid-battle, and ships moved to shield those most in danger. Captain Ward gave orders calmly, even as the fleet took hits. "Focus on protecting civilians. Use every trick, every strategy we have. Buy time, save lives, and do not give up. That is our mission." Small ships followed, forming a barrier around the transport, while engineers improvised a temporary shield using energy from surrounding vessels. The attack struck the human ships with full force, tearing through hulls, setting off alarms, and injuring crew. Yet the transport survived, carrying civilians safely away. The Coalition watched in awe. They had expected humans to fight bravely, yes, but they had not imagined this level of ingenuity, courage, and selflessness. The humans were not just defending. They were saving, improvising, and inspiring in equal measure. Throughout the battle, acts of heroism multiplied. A pilot on the Phoenix maneuvered through enemy fire to tow a disabled vessel to safety. Engineers on the Liberty repaired critical systems while under bombardment, keeping the ship alive long enough to protect other vessels. Small crews coordinated energy flows and weapon systems with speed and precision, creating a chain reaction that allowed damaged ships to continue fighting. Ward knew the cost of this battle. Ships were lost, crews were injured, and the strain on the human fleet was immense. Yet he also knew something deeper. The humans' actions were changing the galaxy. Every life saved, every ship preserved, every strategy improvised inspired others. Coalition forces began to move with confidence, coordinating with the humans to protect planets, evacuate civilians, and counter the Empire's moves. As the battle raged, Ward saw an opportunity. Using an asteroid field near the edge of the system, he ordered the fleet to create a trap. The humans maneuvered with precision, drawing the Empire fleet into a narrow corridor where their numbers became less effective. Missiles, energy beams, and electronic countermeasures struck from all directions. The Empire fleet, expecting an easy victory, found itself trapped and forced to fight on human terms. The Empire commanders were furious. They had underestimated the humans, assuming that a small, uncoordinated fleet could be destroyed easily. Instead, they faced strategy, ingenuity, and courage. The humans had turned the odds in a way no simulation could predict. Ward watched the results on the bridge. Several Empire ships were disabled or destroyed. Others were forced to retreat temporarily to avoid further losses. The humans had bought more time, saved countless lives, and demonstrated a level of courage and selflessness that the galaxy had never seen. Liara turned to the council, her voice full of awe. "They are not just fighting," she said. "They are teaching us how to stand, how to protect, and how to have courage when it seems impossible." But they had proven something essential. Mercy and courage were more powerful than fear, more powerful than numbers, and more powerful than even the most destructive weapons. Captain Ward gathered his officers. "We may lose ships, we may lose friends, but we will not lose our purpose. We are here to protect the innocent, to buy time, and to inspire hope. That is our victory, no matter what the outcome of this battle." They fought not for glory, not for conquest, but because someone had asked for mercy, and they had answered. On the coalition worlds, the people celebrated the humans' courage. Stories spread quickly, of ships maneuvering through impossible odds, of engineers repairing vessels under fire, of pilots risking everything to protect civilians. Children spoke of these heroes with awe, elders recounted every detail, and leaders began to understand a truth they had long ignored. Humans were not only warriors, they were guardians. As cycles passed, the Empire regrouped, but its morale had been shaken. It had encountered a species unlike any it had faced before. Humans did not fight for themselves. They did not calculate odds in conventional terms. They measured value by life, courage, and mercy. The Empire could destroy ships, but it could not destroy the humans' principles, and in that it had no answer. Captain Ward looked at the stars. The battle had tested them, and it had been costly. Yet he felt something deeper, a quiet certainty that humans had changed the galaxy forever. They had shown what courage meant, what mercy meant, and what it meant to stand when no one else would. Liara spoke to the council, her voice firm. "The humans have done more than we ever imagined. They have saved worlds, inspired our people, and shown the Empire that mercy can be stronger than fear. The galaxy will never be the same. We have witnessed something extraordinary. Humans do not fight for themselves, they fight for others, and that is a force no enemy can truly defeat. Not for glory, not for power, not for reward, but because it is the right thing to do." The stars stretched endlessly before them, cold and distant, yet filled with the light of countless lives they had saved. The humans moved steadily, unwavering, determined to protect those who had no one else. The Empire had not yet learned the lesson. Humans do not abandon the helpless. And the galaxy began to understand, slowly but surely, that when humans answer a call for mercy, they do so fully, selflessly, and courageously. They stand for life, for hope, and for others. They are unlike any species the universe has ever known. Captain Ward stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. "We will continue," he said quietly. "No matter the cost, no matter the danger, no matter the odds, we will protect life. We will answer the call. That is who we are." But they also carried with them a truth that no weapon could destroy. Courage, mercy, and the willingness to stand for others could change the course of the universe itself. The galaxy would remember them, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the species that answered when no one else would. And in that answer, hope had returned to the stars. The humans moved onward, unbroken, unafraid, and resolute. And the universe would never forget that when the helpless called for mercy, humans always came.